Hi friends, I'm Pennie Hunt and this is Pennie Heart to Heart, day 28. 28 days, 28 videos. I have been coming to you every day at 3 o'clock Mountain Time and talking to you about what's going on in the world and giving you some tips and techniques about how to stay in gratitude and try to be happy during this stressful time, and also just sharing things that pop into my head that I think are worth thinking about and sharing. So today, before I start, I want to remind you that I'm giving away my book. If you would like to be in the drawing for the book giveaway, all you have to do in the comment line is write, "I love your book," and you'll be in this week's drawing. And then I will get them mailed out as soon as I can. So if you're interested in my book and don't have it, or maybe you have it and would like a copy to give away, that'd be a great way to receive one, is to enter my drawing. I'm thrilled when I get to share my books. So today's topic, I want to talk about how we compare things. And we all do this. We all do this. I do this. We compare everything. We compare which television show is better, which one we want to watch. We compare restaurants. We compare gas prices. We compare the weather. We look at what the forecast is and compare it with what really happened. We are always in comparison mode. And so I thought about that, how we compare everything, and really isn't comparing judging. If we compare ourselves to others, if one person is taller than the other, or maybe I don't feel like I'm tall enough because I'm not very tall, or one person, we look at their weight and their size, we look at the way they dress, and we compare people to people and people to us. And when we're doing that, we're judging. We're judging how they look compared to us. We're judging how we perceive they should be. We're judging everything all the time. We really are. So I was thinking about when we were kids. Do you remember back? I don't know if this happens all the time now, but when I was a kid, everything was graded in school with red marker, red pen. And so I remember getting those my spelling test, the mistakes circled in red, and at the top it would say -3 with a big circle around it, and the grade was written in red. And it was like this red pen was this magic tool of criticism, that it was always judging. And if it had an A, I guess that was a great thing. But if it had a minus sign and how many were wrong, it was always the instrument of judgment. And maybe that's where we learned how to critique, where we learned how to criticize, compare, and judge. And I think now, growing up, we all have this mental red pen. We all have this mental red pen where we are always judging everything and critiquing. And so whether we know it or not, that little mental red pen is always working, always doing check marks, always saying if we think that's correct or not. And maybe the most devastating is the critiquing of ourselves. We have such judgment of ourselves that we are not good enough, that we're not tall enough or thin enough or smart enough. And the only way that we get that kind of assessment in our mind is because we are comparing ourselves to somebody else. Whether it's somebody we know, somebody we see, a picture in a magazine, stars on TV or in the movies, we're always doing this comparison. And that is where judgment comes from. So I had this thought about how it's happening today, because I think we're all being told the same thing: stay in your homes, wash your hands, stay 6 feet away. But on the other side of that, we're judging and comparing and critiquing how other people are doing it. If you do run to your grocery store for your quick run, hopefully not very often, and you see you're wearing your mask and other people aren't, and we're judging them. Or maybe you're not a mask wearer and you see other people and you think that's just silly, and you're judging people who wear masks. Or judging people for standing too close, or judging people because they have adapted to the 6-foot rule and standing away. And so it seems like always in judgment, there's two sides. You're either on this side or this side. And so in this circumstance in life, you may be on the side that you think we have to do everything. We cannot leave our house. We have to wear a mask. We have to wash our hands. And I'm leaning that way because I'm thinking better safe than sorry. And maybe you're on the other side of thinking this is nothing more than the flu and I'm not doing any of that. But there is judgment either way because we're looking at the other side, how they're doing it or not doing it. And we look at our leaders and we judge them for their decisions. And depending on which side of the theory that you think, whether it is, this is really stopping everything or this is a waste of time, there's two sides. And so we're judging and comparing always ourselves to the other side and looking at people and comparing them to how other people are doing it. There's always this mental red pen going on in our head where we're critiquing and judging. And I think we can come to a middle ground of what if, instead of judging everything, we would just say, if we saw somebody that we didn't think was doing it the right way, they weren't wearing a mask or whatever they did that you didn't deem to be appropriate, what if you just looked at them and said, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that some people don't think they need to wear a mask? Or isn't that interesting that they don't seem to be cautious at all? Or if you're on the other side and you're seeing people with masks and even gloves and all kinds of things, and if you could just say, isn't that interesting that they are so protected? And isn't it interesting what's going on in our world? It is just such a calming middle ground to be. Now, you can have your opinions. You can buy in. I definitely have mine, what I think about the situation and how we need to protect ourselves. And I am washing my hands. And the couple times, which is in 28 days, been a couple runs to pick up my grocery order. And I will wear a mask because I do not want to be ill. I don't want to cause anyone else to be ill. So again, I feel like better safe than sorry. But if we said, isn't that interesting? It isn't you're not saying this is good. You're not saying this is bad. You're not being hateful. You're just making an observation. So if you can stand back and just observe what everything that's happening and say, isn't that interesting that that's how that person feels? And isn't that interesting that that's how this leader is responding? And this other leader over here is responding in a very different way. Isn't this all interesting? We are human and we all have different opinions and different ideas and different ways of coping. And so if you know someone who is very adamantly not leaving their home, isn't that interesting? They're taking that safety route. And if you're watching the folks that have to go out and go to work and the precautions that they take and hoping and sending them the best wishes you can that they won't become ill. And isn't that interesting that they're dedicated and they can go out and do that? So isn't that interesting? Again, it's not bad. It's not good. It is not hateful. It doesn't start arguments. And it keeps your mind from getting boggled with all of this comparison and judging. Because that's what we're doing. We're judging. What would happen if you tried it for one day and when you watched the news, you didn't get upset because they were saying something that you didn't agree with or you think that's ridiculous, or when you hear what's happening in your local area, maybe you don't agree with it. What if you just said, isn't that interesting, and for one full day didn't judge, didn't critique, didn't criticize anyone, and especially not yourself? I think there's so much information going around, and if you are like me and staying home 28 days, and maybe you think you're not doing this right, maybe you're not getting enough accomplished, or comparing again to what other people are doing. We see these fabulous stories about people have completely cleaned out their home, or finished a big project, or whatever it is. And maybe the way you're coping is watching TV. And we judge each other by, you're not doing enough, or I'm not doing enough, or why don't they do more, or why can't they do this during this time? We judge and critique all the time. So if you could do one day without it and see how you felt, and at the end of the day say, isn't that interesting? I really didn't judge all day. I just observed. It's a hard thing to do because it's so ingrained in our mind. Even our society teaches us and wants us to judge. Think about giving reviews for restaurants and for movies and all the things that we talk about. Isn't that a form of critiquing and judging? We're judging. And it's such a objective thing to do. I mean, some people might like a certain kind of food and others don't. And so the critique or the review that we give on the sites that we can review places like restaurants and hotels, it's such an objective thing. What we like, maybe somebody else won't. And so the whole idea of reviewing and judging and critiquing is taught to us, ingrained in us, and even encouraged. It's a fascinating dynamic. So I started thinking today about judging, and I watched the press conferences of our leaders, and I see the comments and how everybody's judging everybody, and everybody has an opinion of what they think is right and wrong. And what if we just said, isn't that interesting? I want to remind you that I'm giving away books. In the comment line, just say, I love your book, and even if you watch this after it's not live, you'll be in the drawing, and I will notify you on Sundays. Sundays is when I tell people who won for the week. So, thank you for your time. It's been my pleasure and honor to do this for 28 days and chat with you. I hope you have a great weekend. I will be here tomorrow, 3 o'clock Mountain Time. I'm Pennie Hunt. This has been Pennie Heart to Heart. Thanks for watching.